Well, hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's been a little while, I know. So I said I was going to do this quick refresh, right? 3 weeks, I think, is a number, or 4 weeks I put out there. Maybe it was 3 weeks, I don't know. And so a lot's happened during that time. We've been really busy in the shop with customer cars, in a couple engine rebuilds. So the quick little refresh I was doing kind of got pushed to the side. I still kept going. The motor's done, it's built, it's complete. It's actually ready to go back in the car. But when I get the customer cars in and the customer engines for rebuilding, I prioritize those first because they just don't like to have stuff sitting around. I like to get into the job, get it done, and get it back out to the owner so they can enjoy it and move on with their projects or their restorations or drive the car, whatever it is they're working on. So that's kind of what happens around here. We just finished up a 907 rebuild on a 1977 Lotus Esprit, white, looks like a James Bond car, beautiful car. That's getting a total restoration, not in our shop, but we did the block rebuild. So we did the short block. We took the whole thing apart, vapor blasted everything. We did all the bearings, checked all the clearances, cylinders, the liners, the nip, all that stuff, and forged pistons. We brought it up to 9-to-1 compression from we brought it up to 9.5-to-1 from 8.5-to-1. So we had a little more power out of that car. Anyway, that motor's done, that's out, but that took some time. And then we have this behind me. This is a 1986 Lotus Esprit Turbo with Bosch injection. Beautiful car. 14,000 original miles on this. It's like a time capsule. And I love time capsules because I can see what the car looked like when it left the Lotus factory. Like everything Lotus did from the factory, their production intent, the fingerprints are still all over this car, and to me, that's super, super cool. It's kind of like automotive archaeology for me. So I can look at this, and I'm like, oh, look at that. They zip tied those together. Or, they ran the vacuum line over here. I've never actually seen it there. By the time I get cars and they've been worked on, usually everything's all moved around, right? And you don't know where it was to begin with. Did you know Lotus from the factory on these cars used tons of zip ties before they put the engine in to hold all those hoses kind of in certain places, like the vertical upright, the cooling pipe. There is so much zip tie to that. It's unbelievable, and it's factory. It's factory. So we're going to do a little archaeological dig into that and take a look at that. Because I'm a sucker for archaeology. I love history. I love all that stuff. Most people don't know that about me, but I can geek out for hours on YouTube watching all this stuff, all these history shows, and even some conspiracy stuff I think is kind of fun and entertaining from time to time. Like talking about ancient Egypt and Peru and the Nazca lines and Petra, all that stuff just fascinates me. So to have the opportunity to pull the engine on this, to get in there and look at how it was assembled from the factory, I'm excited about. But that's not why the car's here. The car's here because it's smoking like a steam train or an old coal locomotive. I mean, billowing smoke. And that's just not okay. So when the car came in, we were asked to do a couple things. We were asked to do a head gasket, and we replaced the head studs with ARP. We went through that. We refreshed the intake manifold. We put a new alternator on. A lot of work like that. And that was at the request of the owner. And we got it all back together again. And then it turns out the car is smoking pretty bad. So the history of this car with 14,000 miles. And this is kind of interesting because you buy a car with low miles and you think you're getting a really good car, right? And then I've seen YouTube videos where folks do point it out. Hey, if you buy a car that hasn't been driven and it's 40 plus years old and it has super low miles, watch out. You could be in for a lot more than you're anticipating. that's kind of the case with this baby here. Not to anyone's fault, no fault of anyone else. I think the car sat for a long time, and unfortunately, I think one of the rings in cylinder number 3 has decided to stop functioning the way it's supposed to function. I don't know exactly what's happened to it yet, but what I notice is the spark plugs on 1, 2, and 4 are super clean after running this, after doing the valve job. And then number 3 has oil on it, and that's a really bad sign. So this morning, the first thing I'm going to do is a leak down on the cylinders to see if I could confirm that we have bad rings. So we're going to do that, and if that is the case, unfortunately, the motor has to come out and be torn down, and we're going to be doing another low-end engine rebuild. We might try to just limit it to the things we absolutely have to take apart. What I mean by that is we don't necessarily have to take off the auxiliary housing in the oil pump. We might be able to leave that on the block and get that job done. But anyway, we're going to have to pull pistons, I think, and replace rings. I think that's where we're going with this job. But with that, let me show you this car, because it's a time capsule. It is super cool.
Here is the engine. Like I said, we've already done a bunch of work on this. We cleaned it up quite a bit. It was extremely dirty, and you can see it's looking good. You'll notice that the valve covers, the covers for the cam carriers, are bare aluminum. When we got the car here, it had the original Lotus orange paint, but for some reason 90% of it had flaked off, which I find really odd for a car with only 14,000 miles. But nevertheless, that was the case, and the owner just wanted us to remove the rest of it. So we vapor blasted them so they look better. And then if he wants to take them off later and powder coat them, he can certainly do that. That's an easy job. But it's a Bosch car, and it runs really good. You know, even with the smoke right now, it's still doing what it should, and it sounds pretty good. It's just not drivable. But it's all original. Like, even if you look at the side panels, which I took the screws out, so please don't judge based on that. It had factory screws in it when I received it. But look at the carpet. You can still see the contrasting colors between, like, the black, the charcoal, the gray, and the white-ish color, which is rare to see, because usually they get dirty and, you know, oil soaked or whatever, and you just lose that contrast in the carpet color. But it still has it, which is super cool. He did have the turbo rebuilt. At first he thought the seals in the turbo were bad, and that's why it was smoking, which is, you know, valid, a pretty common cause for smoke coming out the back. But that didn't solve the problem either. All right, let's walk around. So the paint's beautiful. Original paint. Hardly any, I can't even find, if you look really close, you can find a couple scratches, a few minor touch-ups, possibly, but, you know, to even mention it is kind of doing the car a disservice, because it really is beautiful. I mean, in the paint color, it's consistent throughout the whole car. So it's not faded at all. I don't see any signs of it beginning to peel or crack or anything. It's a beautiful car. And the tires. These are original Lotus factory tires. These are from 1986. The original tires on the car. How cool is that? Now the back right rear is losing air. I got to pump it up because it'll start to deflate after a little while. So here's the interior. And I mean, just look at the condition of the carpets, right? Usually all this is scuffed up from people dragging their legs in and out. And I mean, it's got a few scuffs, but I think nothing that can't be cleaned up. The leather looks really good. That wrinkled leather look, which is so 1980s, is just iconic. Some people love it, some people hate it. I kind of dig it because it's just a reflection of that time period, that era we were in, the 1980s. Things were different. Things were cool. This was luxury at its highest. Let's look at the miles. 14,000 original miles. All the gauges work. Everything's great on this car. The original Blaupunk stereo. Look at that, huh? Super cool. And there is the factory plate. February 1986. So an early 86 car. I mean, it even has the original straps that hold up the engine cover if you want to lift up the engine cover. Those are never there. Never there. And even the latches, still you can still see the zinc plating, which is usually long gone as well. So I'm just geeking out over this car. I think it's so cool. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but if I get down, the lower control arms, they still have zinc plating on them. Oh, so just a really cool car. All right, so we got to do a leak down test. I just need to get into that right now.
All right, for the leak down, I'm going to start on number 3 because, you know, I pulled the plugs. All of them look, I put brand new plugs in after we did the head. All the plugs were brand new, so I pulled them out after running it for a little bit, and it's smoking. Number 1, number 2, number 4 looked great. Number 3 had oil on it. So we're going to do a leak down on number 3, and I suspect we're going to have leak down into the crankcase. We'll be able to hear that maybe through the oil fill or the dipstick, but I can almost guarantee you that's going to be the issue. So what I got to do is rotate the motor by hand to get number 3 on top dead center with both the valves closed. I'm going to hook up my little leak down thing, apparatus, whatever you want to call it, and get a reading, and that'll confirm you know, what we're up against. So I got to jump under the car, I got to rotate the engine, I got to find top dead center. Let me do that, and then we'll do the leak down test. All right, here's where we are. I've got the leak down equipment here hooked up to the airline. Ran a leak down on all 4 cylinders, putting each one at top dead center, valves closed. And what's really interesting is we had like a 10% loss, and that was it. So that's not what I expected. However, a couple other things that I didn't tell you about. There is, after doing the head, we pressure tested the head. The valves are all good. That's all sealed. Everything's great. New head gasket, ARP studs, the whole 9 yards. So we are still getting the white smoke out of the exhaust, and I thought the leak down would identify a bad ring. However, it did not, which is very interesting. I didn't tell you this. The car sat for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, it may have had the original coolant still in the car up until recently. So the coolant was in horrible shape. So there's a possibility, and it is a northern car, there's a possibility there was a freeze-thaw cycle that happened at some point. So we could be looking at something a little more challenging. And in addition, when the car was running and I took the oil fill cap off, the intake cam cover, it would spit oil out. Almost like compression was getting into the crankcase and finding its way up to the head. It was like spit, 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 spit. So really makes me think that compression gases are still somehow getting into the crankcase. All right, so what does that tell me? The leak down was good. Now, one thing about the leak down, it's only going to confirm that the rings in the cylinder in the head is good when the piston's at top dead center. If for some reason if the engine sat for a long time with the number 3 cylinder down in the bore, and actually, I don't know if I said this before, but when I put in new spark plugs, I pulled them all out after running it for a little bit. The number 3 spark plug had oil on it, which is very interesting. The other 3 were perfectly fine. So I'm thinking if the engine sat for a long period of time without running with the number 3 cylinder down in the bore, and somehow there was corrosion on the cylinder liner lower in the bore, and as that piston goes down and it reaches that point where the cylinder liner is compromised, you can lose compression there. And that's not going to show in the leak down, because the leak down is only going to show you what's happening at the top of the cylinder in the immediate combustion chamber. So at this point, and I consulted with another friend of mine who is an expert in Lotus Esprit, and I don't know if he wants me to share his name, so I'm not going to, but I 100% appreciate him talking to me on the phone, and we went over this together. So a couple things. He had a great question. Was it subject to freeze thaw? It could potentially be a cracked block. It could be a cracked liner, or it could be a liner that has corroded lower in the bore. That was, as the piston travels through that corrosion, it's losing compression. We kind of think it's one of those 3 things. So at this point, 99.99% sure it's coming from somewhere in the block. So we need to pull the engine out, gearbox, we need to strip it down. We need to take a close look at number 3, the liner, the piston, the rings, and get a better look at what's happening in there. So unfortunately, I wish I had better news, but that's where we are with this car. Looks like the engine's coming out, and we are going to have to tear it down. Hopefully, it'll just be a liner. Maybe it's a cracked liner. We can replace the liners. If it's a cracked block, we'll have to replace the block if it can't be repaired. And, if it's a ring, which I don't think it is at this point, but regardless, we're going to replace the rings anyway if we go into the engine that far. So the next step is to take out, do the whole engine removal process, which I've done before so many times on these videos and in this channel. We have yet another one. So my attention is going to be on this for the immediate future. I think it's going to take me, realistically, 2 to 3 weeks to get the job done. I hope I can do it faster. A lot of it depends on how quickly you can get parts. We have to determine the problem and then order the parts, wait for the parts to come in. And then if there's any machining work that needs to be done, that extends the timeline as well. And any other surprises. So it's really hard to put a time on how long it's going to take until we know what the actual problem is. But at this point, we know we're dealing with an engine out. So I need to put the camera away, get to work, because I got to pull this thing out. So that's where we are, and let's find out what is going on with this car. Really interesting problem here. Kind of a tough one to diagnose. Hey, one more thing. When I pulled the covers off the cam towers, I did notice the oil, it's all brand new oil, I just put it in, is a little milky. So we've got coolant in there. Where it's coming from, I don't know. But if it's a cracked liner, that could be where the coolant's coming from. That would make sense, right? Potentially a liner seat, I'm not sure. So we need to tear it down. But those are the symptoms. That's kind of what we've been through in diagnosing this, and it's time to pull it out and dig a little deeper. So here we go.
All right, so I'm in the process of removing the back panel. This is an 86, and most of the connections are up in there above the gas tank to remove this back panel with the ignition box. But check this out. So there's a thick wire cord that comes out of the ignition box. It comes up into the side bulkhead above the gas tank, and then it comes back through here to the battery. That's what I want to show you. So I'm talking about a cable that has these 2 black and this 1 brown, and then on the positive side it has those 2 light brown wires. I can't just pull this out because they feed the wires through the boot here, and then they have the terminal ends that go into the battery. To get the wire out, you either have to destroy this rubber boot and pull these out, or you have to cut where they go into this ring terminal, cut that, and then you can put new terminals on both sides. But that's just a pain. So I went halfway, and I just cut that large cable and I put in these connectors. So now I can just easily disconnect it from here, and it makes it a lot easier when you try to pull this back panel out with all the wires that come out of it and then kind of go everywhere on this side of the car. So yeah, I did that. I think I've got everything disconnected now except for that, so I'm going to disconnect that and then pull this sucker out.
It's been kind of interesting to see how these connections, all these electrical connections have changed from year to year on the Lotus. For instance, on an 80, this is an 86, on an 86, you get a lot more wires that, like this one, goes back to the battery. This is the one I just showed you, but big long cable, comes all the way through here, snakes up through there. You've got all these connections that happen very close to this location, but then you've also got connections up in here. Like the overspeed module and other electronic components are up here, and it connects to the wiring harness that goes up front. So I know on the 88, they consolidated everything. This doesn't exist, and they consolidated everything to right here, and they kind of avoided connections that happen back up in here. Because you got to disconnect all of this to get the ignition box out, or to get the ignition box in the back panel out, which is the first thing you got to do when you want to pull the engine out. And this car, this year, there's a lot that comes through here into here. And as a matter of fact, even the engine connections start here in the ignition box, and they come through this section of the side panel and then out this side with some grommets, and then they plug in. So everything's got to pull out of here to get this back panel out. And you can't just yank the whole thing. You kind of got to follow the path of least resistance, find one strand of wires, and see if you can wiggle it out. And the more you get out, the easier the rest come out. I've still got a few more to go. So we'll see if I can get them all here. It's just a matter of one hand pulling, one hand kind of in here feeding them, making sure everything's disconnected and not stuck. One more to go, coming up here. There's that. All right, the last one in there is the one that wraps behind the filler tubes up into this area. So I'm going to have to feed it from here back to here and then pull it out. All right, see what I mean? That's a lot of wiring harness connections. I mean, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll call that 7, 8, 9, 10. You got 11 of these things running through here. Woo! But I think we got them all now, so I'm going to lift the back panel out. Although I have one... Oh, I've got the distributor cable. I need to undo that. That's kind of a tough one. It's funny, on the distributor, the lead they give you, leaving the distributor to the connection is only about this long. So the connection is very close to the distributor. They could have made it a little longer so the connection's here, somewhere you can actually get to, but they didn't. So you kind of got to wiggle both hands in under the intake manifold and get that last connection, and then this comes out. So I'm going to do that now. Right. That's what I'm talking about. This connects in very close to the distributor. Like, why couldn't it be right here? You know? But it's not. Let's see. Got some vacuum lines. I got those disconnected. I think I'm ready to go. I'm going to try to pull it out. Okay, well, step one, done. That's good. Got that out of the way. And then this is, from here on out, this is kind of the same as the 88 I showed you, the like order of operations, how to disconnect everything. I'm going to this time start at the top of the engine, work my way down, and then jack the back up, disconnect those axles, take out the cross member, disconnect the vacuum line from the vacuum pump, and then I'll get down there and get the oil lines and the AC lines. And I mean, that's kind of the bulk of it, right? There's some other miscellaneous stuff, but generally speaking, that's it. I got to drop the exhaust. So it's not hard. It's just a process. But you do one and then you move on to the other. And what keeps me motivated is, say for instance, I get the exhaust off. I'm like, okay, cool. The exhaust is off and out of the way. That's done. I'm one step closer, and I just do another step. And eventually, it doesn't take too long before the whole thing's disconnected and it's ready to come out. So that's where I am with this. I'm going to probably work off camera to pull this out because we've done this a couple of times on camera. But maybe I'll show you the refresh. Maybe I'll give you an update on that. How about that? We'll take a look at the motor and the transmission, and I'll let you know where I am, although it's kind of on hold. I want to get this done first and then go back to that. It's good to be busy, I'll tell you that. I'm enjoying it. I love when people bring me their cars, and I love cleaning them up, making them look fantastic, making them run great. It's just very rewarding for me, and yeah, it's just great. So let's take a look at that refresh and see where we are. All right, so here is where we are with the refresh engine. I mean, it's essentially back together again. I got a few things to button up on the front, but she's all done, ready to go in the car, essentially. And I got a new bearing for the alternator tensioner. I put that in. I had that pulley and the mounting plate all zinc plated. Had the pulley for the air pump zinc plated. What else on the front? It's kind of about it. Everything else is the way it was. Top's all cleaned up. I went with all zinc coated bolts on this to get that really nice contrast between the aluminum and the zinc. I like stainless too. On this motor, I decided to go zinc just because of, like I said, that contrast. When you open the hood, you see the gold or the yellow zinc, and you see the aluminum, and you've got the black, and all those colors really contrast each other really well, so I think it presents itself well. Jury's out on how long does zinc coating last under normal conditions. How long will the zinc coating last on the Lotus Esprits that are just driven once in a while? So parked in the garage, climate controlled, and then you take them out on nice days, that kind of thing. Because if you notice on factory cars with the zinc plating, it doesn't seem to last very long, right? After a while, it starts to fade and it starts to rust a little bit. So it's sort of an experiment for me as well to see how long that zinc is going to hold up. If it doesn't hold up, then I might switch back to stainless. But for now, we'll go with this.
All right, don't mind the wiring harness. It's just kind of hanging out there. It's not even connected. I did get the manifold hot jet coated. So in North Carolina, their headquarters are now up in Greensboro, which is like an hour and a half away. So I can zip up there, drop things off for jet hot coating, and have them back in just a couple weeks. So I thought I'd give it a try, and this is an example of that. So I didn't go with the top of the line. The top of the line coating is good for a higher temperature rating, and it almost has like a chrome finish, but it accentuates irregularities and cast more than the coating I went with. So this is the second to best coating. I think it's good for up to like 2,000 degrees potentially. And it's guaranteed for life, never to fade on an exhaust system. So that's really cool. Oh, and it reduces heat by 40% coming off thermal exchange coming off of the exhaust manifold. So that's pretty cool. So I did that. Other than that, general cleaning up of everything. You can see I've got the linkages all zinc plated. That came out pretty good. But nothing out of the ordinary. Oh, I did get a new AC compressor. I only did that because it had the original one on there, and I wanted to upgrade to the R134. So I did, and once the engine's in the car, that's a tough job to do. It's hard to get to some of those nuts and bolts with wrenches, with everything in the way. So actually, those AC compressors are pretty inexpensive. I was surprised. It was like $200. So for $200, I'm like, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then here's the gearbox. So gearbox was fine. Nothing was wrong with it. I went ahead and had the shift mechanism there zinc plated. So I took all the covers off. I vapor blasted them, and then I put freshly zinced bolts back in. There's the back panel. Of course, that's going to have to all come off to go in the car. But I just kind of loosely mocked it up, so I knew where all the parts were. But that's gearbox. It's ready to go. There's our engine ready to go on the refresh. The refresh that I said would take 3 weeks, which is really taking 3 months. But, you know, it is what it is. And there's all that. We got a lot of parts here in stock, that's for sure. Lots of Delorto carburetors. Now I think we're sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 or 10 sets of Delortos. Tons of cam carriers, old style, new style. Tons of camshafts. We got C-cams, 104s and 107s. Just a lot of stuff. Tons of connecting rods. We have iron liners. All the accessories for the engine. Oil pumps. Stock Lotus. New old stock shocks from the factory. And then a bunch of body parts over there. Rear tail lights for the G-body cars. And this is only a fraction of it. We've got a couple engine blocks there, but I've got like 5 more in another location. So yeah. Oh, and a ton of Bosch stuff and gauges and a lot of really great things to help folks get their cars back on the road. So
yeah, so if you're looking for parts, give us a call if you don't see it on the website, because honestly, it's a lot of time to take pictures of everything and write descriptions and get it up on the website. So I don't have everything on the website. We have a lot more in stock. You might have seen it in one of the videos. We've got a frame for the Lotus Esprit. It's a 1989 frame. It came off a turbo Lotus Esprit, and that is here, and we have that for sale. A lot of stuff. Don't really carry a lot of consumables. You know, JAE is really great for consumables like gaskets and seals and bearings and stuff like that. But if you're looking for components like a bracket, right, an alternator bracket, or you're looking for a water pump pulley, or you're looking for, you know, air pump pulleys, crank pulleys, castings, you name it. Anything on the motor that's not a consumable, chances are we have it. So give us a call, and we're always building engines. If you need an engine built, just give us a ring. Happy to do an engine build. As a matter of fact, we have so many blocks here and so many engine parts, we're actually thinking of building a 907 or a 910 complete engine, and then posting that for sale as well. Or we can build it to your specs. So that's where I am with the refresh. And, you know, I got this project now, pulling this engine on the 86. So things are pretty busy. We do a lot of vapor blasting still. And spring seems to be the season for vapor blasting. Like, you get busy, like you have a month when you have 10 people call, and then you have a month when nobody calls. It's kind of funny how that works. Feast or famine. It seems to always be that way. But so that's it for now. I got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to sign off, and I will see you guys next time. All right? All right. See ya.